So this is my biweekly update for April 1st, 2022. It should be pretty brief. Nothing to see here. I don't know how this ended up in my slideshow. Okay, so progress from past. So this week on Sunday of last week actually, I submitted my insure application for summer 2022. Um, if you're fine with it, I would like to continue working on this project throughout the summer. So I doubt I can finish a good part of it before I finish school, especially with finals week coming up and me still having a few exams left. So yeah, I think I could really get a decent amount of work done in the summer. If Insure doesn't no longer has room or anything, I'm fine. I don't need to be paid. I can do it for no pay. It's perfectly fine. Um, I also finished my URAF poster this week and my voiceover presentation. My presentation date is April 8th next week, so they're doing the same thing that they did for Midsure, so they're not actually having me present in any capacity. I'm just reading script in a YouTube video, and people go watch the YouTube video, leave comments, and I respond to the comments online. I'm kind of bummed because I actually kind of wanted to present and actually engage with an audience, but it is what it is. And I also submitted an abstract on the COVID-19 project as well to ACS Fall in Chicago, so that should be fun. Yeah, they didn't really have any good sections, um, but I put computers in chemistry. I believe that was the section I submitted it to. So hopefully we'll get into that. It'll be fun. So right now I'm continuing to focus on getting Rosetta and the design of ligand binding sites to work. I found a more detailed protocol. I found the methods chapter written by Rocco Moretti in the Myler lab, and I also found one written by an iGEM team that looks more detailed, and it gives more specifications about the number of models I should generate, like what thresholds I should use to filter the final sequences that I'll look at, the design sequences. So it seems pretty understandable, and this weekend I will implement it. On the previous model structure, I made a 6ZEC, the random fab, together with GD2, and I will see what results I obtain with it. If it's really easy to work with, it's a given. It's part of the workflow. Ideally, I should still email Rocco Moretti, just asking him one last time if Rosetta and the design of ligand binding sites is suitable for antibodies. I don't have too many qualms, but I would just like his affirmation on that, or someone else's. But they haven't replied to any of my emails yet, and I'm kind of sad. But I'm not giving up. I'm still I would still contact them if need be. So ideally, by the end of this computational process, I would like a workflow that is pretty seamless. It takes homology models, docks them, standard protein ligand docking, optimizes the docked pose a little, whether that's through glycan dock alone or through glycan dock and snug dock, and then it conducts the affinity maturation and spits out the filtered sequences. And then those sequences are analyzed for stability and humanness, the outputted sequences. So for docking optimization, I would like to implement glycan dock. I mean, that's the plan. After I master Rosetta and the design of ligand binding sites, I will devote all of my efforts to implementing glycan dock. I'll try it. They don't really have a protocol that I could find, but I'll try it as much as I can this weekend, see how far I get. Snug dock, based on its structure, just first glance, it seems like it's another thing meant for protein antigens, not ligand antigens, but I'll implement it because it's on ROSI, the Rosetta web server, so I don't actually need to look up a protocol for it. and follow it and try to actually wrap my head around it. Now I'll just submit it to the web server and see what results I get. So I'll do that as well. It caught my eye really because of its claim to, due to its allowance of flexibility in the protein backbone, it overcomes some of the homology modeling limitations. And AlphaFold is great and all, but we could still obviously minimize the homology modeling errors. And I mean, it seems good practice to validate the docking and the docking pose optimization workflow in some way. I mean, the way that comes to mind is to use RMSDs like we did for the score function analysis in the COVID project, where we compared a crystal structure and the dock structure, and we found the root mean square deviation, and that's an indicator of how well the program's able to replicate real life conditions to an extent. So this is a flowchart of the computational work that I'm envisioning doing. I take the GD2 conformers and a homology modeled sequence out of the many that we have. Once they're selected, then I perform standard protein ligand docking just to initially position the ligand and get a complex that I can work with. Then I begin pose refinement, first with glycan dock to optimize the carbohydrate ligand in its local binding area, and then if it works, then I'll use snug dock to optimize the homology model. If not, I think glycan dock might be sufficient, and snug dock might not even work for non-protein ligands, so I'll see. Then the computational protein design will occur, the affinity maturation, using the Rosetta and the design of ligand binding sites protocol. Then I'll have a filter file at the end of that selects the FASTA sequences that are below a certain energy threshold. And you can specify the energy threshold that you want. It will spit out those sequences, and then those sequences will be subject to validation of stability and humanness to see that the mutations produced in the affinity maturation didn't compromise the ones already produced through DDG monomer and other stabilizing and humanness analyses. So with that in mind, I have a few questions specifically about the methods chapter. So from what I've seen, do they really need any sort of validation behind them, or can they just be a protocol that you ran and say, well, perhaps this can work for something, we don't have any definitive proof, but this is how we did it? Can a method chapter just be that, or is there place for validation within it? Will this whole antibody engineering work become a manuscript eventually? What sort of validation? I mean, I mentioned root mean square deviation, but what sort of other validation should I do for the docking and the pose refinement of GD2 onto the homology models? Yeah, I mean, so far I can just think of RMSD, and I'll use some crystal structures from FabDab. I'll also use 4TUO that Sam mentioned and its corresponding complex. I don't really know how many I should do. Probably I shouldn't think about doing any less than 15, I guess. But I don't know. RMSD is all I can really think of. And well, the paper I read, I mentioned previously, it's a protocol really. It's like the methods chapter, but it's far more detailed and it's longer, and it's by a team who used Rosetta for an iGEM project. So yeah, I found it really helpful, really instructive, and I'll follow both the methods protocol and this one. So yeah, that's about all.